This is Dr. Cindy Banyai, volunteer with the Democratic Party of Lee County, talking this time on political perspectives about the upcoming legislative session. So we have a lot of bills coming up in the legislative session. This year we have a early year legislative session starting in January instead of its usual February and March because of the presidential election and the elections that other legislators are going to be having this year. So we have some significant things on the horizon that are going to negatively affect the folks in the state of Florida. We can look at this as being the return of Ron session, going right back to all of those authoritarian slides and culture war nonsense that he tried to use to catapult himself into the presidency, but seriously has failed doing so far. And of course, it's caused us a lot of problems here in the state of Florida. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the abortion ban that has been put out there. This abortion ban comes on the heels of the 2023 6-week abortion ban and the 2022 15-week abortion ban, both of which are tied up in the courts right now. This total abortion ban has no restrictions on it in terms of, or no exceptions in it for rape and incest, and is only allowed in the cases of the life of the mother. So it will significantly reduce the ability of women and their providers to make necessary medical decisions without having some burden and potentially losing their life. And to make this worse, our very own House District 78 Representative Jenna Persons-Mulika has sponsored a bill that adds unborn persons to a statute on criminal liability that allows for people to sue people when there is a loss of life. So now unborn persons will be added to that if this passes. And we will see the potential for women and doctors and providers to be sued if there is a loss of life, further risking the liability, both financial and personal liability of women and providers around the state who may provide abortion care, and further endangering women around miscarriage as well. So let's not forget that this is wrapped up in all of reproductive health. Unfortunately, Jenna Persons-Mulika seems to have missed the boat on this, saying that she was offended that people were conveying or she was offended that people were relating her bill to abortion. And this is simply a ridiculous statement because we know that this is part of the suite of reproductive health care. Abortion is part of reproductive health care, as is a lot of other procedures that we have that should be the exclusive purview of women and their doctors, people and their doctors, not the government, and certainly not people who don't understand that these are connected. So if you add liability and the ability to sue for unborn persons and death of unborn persons, then you are going to further restrict healthcare providers in the state of Florida and cause us to lose even more practitioners, not to mention the loss of life, fertility, and health of women. Another big thing that we're looking at is the ending of vote by mail. Republican legislators have put forth a bill that will end vote by mail as we know it, going back to the days where absentee balloting was all that we had. You had to have a valid excuse to get said absentee ballot, and that included being overseas, being in the military, being in the hospital, or being incarcerated without having been convicted of a felony. So this is going to be a significant problem, but it is being brought to us by those folks who love to talk about election integrity, even though Florida has more than a 20-year history of doing vote by mail and doing it very well. None of these facts matter to the folks who would rather play to the big lie and continue to suppress voters in the state of Florida. So there was initial pushback from folks on this bill, but it looks as though it may get all the way out and voted in this session. Additionally, we're looking at more preemptions coming down, and that is where the state legislature decides what a local council and commission can do and can vote on. And that is a big problem and has been something that Ron DeSantis has pushed quite a bit during his tenure, consolidating power in the state and away from local elected officials. Also, with Ron DeSantis firmly back at the helm in Tallahassee, we can expect more culture war nonsense. These bills include flag burning, or flag bans of LGBT folks and pronoun bans in the workplace and more attacks on DEI moving into the workplace. So these types of bills are going to eat up the airspace as folks try to make their case when we know that they have no real world consequences except for hurting folks in the LGBT community, as well as many other communities around the state of Florida. Additionally, of concern, we have the expansion of working capacities for 16 and 17-year-olds. This is the child labor law, allowing children, minors, to be able to work in dangerous situations and in without those time restrictions that they had had in place beforehand. This is a dangerous precedent rolling back to the early ages where we didn't have protections for children, and it makes up for many of the workforce issues that have come about because of the bad policy put forth by Republicans in this state. When we turn to environmental issues, we start to look at some of the problems that we have. The biggest glaring problem in the Senate or in the legislature right now is Senate Bill 738, which is called the Environmental Management Bill. Essentially, this makes it so that anybody that tries to sue the FDEP or water management districts will be required to pay for the attorney's fees. This will have a chilling effect on citizens groups and nonprofits who are trying to protect the environment. This is comes on the back of a similar move in 2023 where the same type of fees were put forth and passed by the legislature for anybody that tries to sue for a comp plan amendment. It's just another way to silence people who do not want to have unbridled development in the state of Florida. Speaking of which, we also have another Southwest Florida representative, Adam Botana from House District 80, has put forth a terrible bill in that it is called House Bill 957, and this will roll back some of the protective lands around Fort Myers Beach. That's in the Matanzas Pass and around San Carlos Island. Essentially, they want to dredge a big old sandbar there that is home to waterfowl and helps to keep the speeds slow in that area so that they can have bigger ships like shrimping boats and other giant boats be able to come into that area. That has been a restricted area and a preserved area for many, many years, contrary to what Mr. Botana is saying, that it is a quote working area. Yes, it is a working area, but we have been very careful about making sure that we are not overdeveloping our shoreline. And this is particularly true in that area around the Matanzas Pass and going in towards Sanibel. Now, there is an opportunity, of course, on Fort Myers Beach to make sure that when we build back, we are building back better and not just selling out to big developers like it is clear that the Florida Republicans, in particular Adam Botana, have done. So those are some of the biggest bills to watch here in the state legislature. Of course, we want you to get active. Please don't be afraid to call your local representatives. That includes your state representative and your state senator, and let them know that you oppose action in these areas. We'll put some additional information at the end of this video for you as well, so that you can call and write and let them know that you do not support the rollback of freedom, of women's rights, of reproductive health, of environmental rights. You do not support unbridled growth, and you do not support power consolidation by Ron DeSantis and his crony Republicans in Tallahassee. So thank you so much for listening here today. We are part of the Big Mouth Media Network, and you can find out more on bigmouthmediafl.com. And you can, of course, check out more from the Lee Dems on their websites and social media. And don't forget to check your voter registration at lee.vote. This has been your host for this time around, Political Perspectives with the Democratic Party of Lee County. Been your host, Cindy Banyai, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.